All right, let's go. This is The Last 2 Years, a talk show production showcasing young leaders, influencers, and celebrities having conversations about influential topics. And tonight, we're talking about race and racism and the recent world-changing events affecting our outlook on the subject. How can we get along in spite of our differences? Better yet, how can we get along in respect to our differences? And to help me with this conversation tonight are our esteemed guests. They are wonderful and inspiring. I'd please like to introduce to you our first guest. He owns the largest Black-owned comedy club in America. He's a comedian originally from Lacey, Washington, and he's been featured in shows such as Wild 'N Out, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and currently playing the role of Junkyard Dog on NBC sitcom Young Rock. Please help me welcome Mr. Nate Jackson. Nate, what's been going on in your world? What is the latest thing you've been up to?
I am in a Christmas movie with Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds and Octavia Spencer that comes out on the 11th of this month.
That's absolutely amazing. And you lived in LA for a certain number of years, correct?
Yes.
Okay. 9 years.
9 years.
Jeez, put in work, man. Is it, as they say, as hard to make it in Hollywood as they say it is?
I don't know who they is that said it, but it's difficult.
It's difficult, huh? But you've definitely made it. I appreciate you for being on the show, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Our next guest, he is a rap artist from Seattle, Washington, known for his authentic lyrics and catchy music. He's made great strides within the hip-hop community, working with artists such as Macklemore, Dave B, and yes, Juicy J. He continues to rise as an artist. He's half Navajo Indian and recently made his acting debut on FX show Reservation Dogs. Please help me welcome Travis Thompson. So Travis, I've been watching your music videos recently.
Okay, bet. Hell yeah.
Yeah, and they're phenomenal. They're very engaging. You're on the spot. But I see that you showcase Seattle in your neighborhood all the time.
Yeah.
You're big on community. Mm-hmm. Why? Why are you big on community? You rep Seattle hard, man.
Thank you, bro. Well, I have to say, like, just being native, it's all about community always. You know what I'm saying? Just from birth, from like who I was raised by, it's always been about community. But also, I was a part of a spoken word poetry organization called Youth Speaks in Seattle.
Okay.
When I was a kid, when I was in high school, the number one thing we learned in Youth Speaks was that like it's all about changing the community around you. Like that's how you take the first step to make any kind of real change. You know what I'm saying? So
Thank you for being here.
Of course, thank you for having me. Yeah.
Our next guest is a TEDx motivational speaker who speaks on the subjects of mental health, mindset, and life. She's also a model and country singer. She's from Nashville, Tennessee. Please help me welcome Amy Corey. Amy, motivation, right? It's hard for people to even get out of bed in the morning. The alarm clock goes off, you want to stay in bed. What would you say for people who are troubling being motivated? What is the way that they can motivate themselves? Sort of like the key to motivation.
People worry about the biggest thing of motivation. Like that's a huge word. And they see the end goal, but they don't see the steps to where they don't celebrate the steps. To where in the morning, if you don't feel motivated, don't think about the rest of your life. Don't even think about the day. Just think about that moment. We suffer from the imagination of the future and we suffer from the memories of the past, which is why it's just so important to be present, because by being present, you can recognize what you've learned, what you want, and can sense in that moment what you need to do.
That is beautiful. Thank you for that. Wow. I'm feeling motivated already. I appreciate you for being here. Our last guest, but not least, is a comedian currently touring the Northwest. She's known for her relatability and her comedy, as she jokes often about her life as a mom of two beautiful children. Please help me welcome Jaci Terjeson. Jaci, what is the most difficult part of being a mom?
The most difficult part, all of it. I would say the most difficult part about being a mom is that it's 24/7. There's no real breaks. All the moms know what I'm talking about. Just that it's constant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, our guests, if you want to give a round of applause. Well, strap right in. We're going to get ready. And without further ado, let's begin. The concept of race in America is kind of complex, as we know. What does it mean to be African American or Native American or Islander? What does it mean to be Asian American or white American? Race technically is a group of people sharing the same culture, history, and language, but who really has all these things in common, right? The definition is vague and open-ended, so I'm curious to know from our guests, what does race mean to you personally, and is it even important?
I looked up the definition.
Okay, well, that's a good way to start.
I looked up the definition of race, and from my Google search in Nashville, Tennessee, it came up as dividing groups based on color. And just the beginning of that sentence, even hearing and seeing the word divide, that's like the complete opposite of what it should be. I think the only reason, in a sense, scientifically, we have different colors is because there's 4 chromophores.
Yeah. It's interesting because the concept of race, it's created, right? It's not really real. But because of, in my opinion, disenfranchisement, we've been linked to these specific races in order to survive, right? It's a survival in the sense of to be African American because of disenfranchisement is a struggle because of the racial degradation that's been put upon this group, and it's been subjugated in that way. I'm curious to know from the rest of our guests, what does race mean to you personally?
I don't know. Race has always been something that's like not important to me until it is, and then it's the most important thing on, you know what I'm saying? Like until it, I don't know. I feel like as a kid, there's a moment where the switch flips and it's like, oh, this is the world I'm in, and this is how I fit into it in this regard. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I never thought about race as a thing until like being a little kid, and then my dad gets pulled over and the cop is talking to him crazy and asking me like a little white baby if I'm gonna be all right. You know what I'm saying? Because my dad's brown.
Yeah, thank you. Nate.
I tell jokes for a living, so how I speak may not be very Cornel West-esque, but race is, to me, extremely important. It is part of who we are, our makeup, who our people are, where we're from, genetically, medically, physically. It's a lot of what we are, who we are, and how we see the world and how the world sees us. If you were an explorer and you pulled up on a new race, would you say, oh, we're the same? Would you acknowledge that you just came across an entirely new culture?
Right.
Where that people are browner the closer you are to the sun.
You know, the origins of race in America stem from the essence of division. And it's interesting because certain groups that have been disenfranchised have created almost a culture based off of that disenfranchisement as a way of strengthening themselves in order to persevere. So I think that there are certain racial groups that are even more tied to race because of survival, which is interesting. Thank you so much, Nate. Jackie, what does race mean to you personally?
It just doesn't mean that much to me personally. And I think in a lot of ways, that's like partly a privilege.
Right.
Because I don't think about my race. I don't experience things very often that like bring my race into my face. And so culture-wise, I don't feel like any part of my culture is tied to my race.
Okay.
So for me, it's like a box on a piece of paper that I check at the doctor.
I see.
Yeah.
It's interesting in contrast to that, to what Travis was saying, you know, like forgetting and then being faced with the adversity of being brown, and how, you know, not having to do with racism is a privilege, and consequently you may not have to even think about it. So thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. Race is one of the more prominent ways in which we define ourselves, culturally and socially, and there's no debate it's been used as a reason to harm others. Discrimination, hate, and other forms of antagonism have been used as a major way of categorizing ourselves, and discrimination, as we all know, is nothing new. A belief that race is a fundamental determinant of a human's traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority for a particular race is by definition racism. Now we're gonna get into some heavy stuff, so just setting the terms for the room. Get ready, brace yourselves. May 25th, 2020, police are called by a grocery store clerk in Minneapolis, Minnesota. George Floyd, a 46-year-old black man, was suspected of using a counterfeit $20 bill. Police officers forcibly removed Floyd from his car and handcuffed him. Floyd was murdered by Derek Chauvin, a white police officer who pressed his knee into Floyd's neck for 9 minutes, 29 seconds. Floyd repeatedly pleaded that he could not breathe. During the final 2 minutes, Floyd was motionless and had no pulse. He died of cardiopulmonary arrest, meaning his heart had stopped due to neck compression. Guests, when you first heard about the murder of George Floyd, what were your initial thoughts and feelings right after you heard it? I'm curious to know.
Watched the video in full, and early on I was enraged. Like, he was still alive. He was still talking. People were still on cameras filming. People were trying to aid Mr. Floyd. 9 minutes and 29 seconds later, I was ready to get active. And for the white people here, get active means it means what you think.
I had just had a baby. So I was like, you know, full sweatpant garb, hadn't left the house in like 2 months. I was holding my child, nursing my child, watching that video, watching a grown man call out for his mother, watching people watch that and no one do anything. I was completely shocked. I was like upset. I don't know. I think it was almost like everything stood still to me and I just couldn't believe it.
So that's interesting. At one end of the spectrum, it's disbelief. Another one is this is ongoing. There's an instant being upset and wanting to take action, right? And then it's interesting how people, after hearing what happened and seeing what happened, how they chose to respond, and how many of us responded in protest. It was an amazing thing to see people coming together to protest. But Amy, can you please let us know what you thought initially after George Floyd's murder?
I was obviously horrified. I am being completely honest. I never wanted to watch the video. I listened to family. I listened to people around. I listened to the testimonials to where it was enough for me to realize that something very, very wrong happened again.
Right.
In a sense, this one was recorded. And I didn't want to, watch someone die. I'm not African American. I don't ever want to speak on how someone within that ethnicity felt.
Right.
So I wanted to listen, and I wanted to see what I could do, also being colored, also as outraged as everyone else, to support those who had more to say, had the experiences to say it, and support them in any way. But obviously it was mortifying to where I couldn't even watch the video.
All right. I've seen the videos that you were in, and talking about the subject of race, you did a lot. You did a lot.
Thank you.
As we were talking about, we had a VIP show, for you guys who don't know. And in the VIP show, we were talking about, there's a gentleman talking about your superpower, right? How can you utilize your superpower in order to promote peace and to do what you can to help others? And I think that's what you did. Just hearing you speak with other people and the focal of the subject being race, I think that was tremendous. Protesting looks different for everyone. And I think you did protest, so thank you so much for that.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Travis, what were your initial feelings in regards to the murder of George Floyd?
Yeah, it's obviously disgusting. But what I saw immediately happen was it felt like a tool people were using for like, all right, y'all see it now, right? All right, y'all see it now. And it felt, which in a way itself was like, okay, I feel like we're getting somewhere, but it's also like, how do you not see? You know what I'm saying? It felt like it was mobilizing people like my aunt to go out and protest, who had never heard her talk like any type of social justice things, ever. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
It felt like it mobilized people, but also that was maddening in itself, being like, why now? But at the same time, it's like, all right, if we're moving, we're moving. But you know what I'm saying?
Honestly, I think COVID had a little bit to do with it. Everyone was home.
For sure, yeah.
No one was working. And then you're seeing this atrocity happening. You have the time, you have the money, and you have the effort to do it.
Yeah.
I think that was a big cause of it.
I'd like to offer this based on how you live, who you are, where you are, what your discourse is. You didn't encounter the same things that other people did on a regular basis. Just by contrast, I can say I was enraged enough to get active, while Jaci can say, I don't even, like, that's not my world.
Right.
And that's fine that it isn't. But I'm like, but it is though. Watching Derek Chauvin kill George Floyd for almost 10 minutes, and the only thing keeping people from helping it and stepping in is the power of the law. People who weren't exposed to that discourse had to say something's wrong. To further the conversation, well, I'll wait.
Okay. Well, this segues into the next question. We're looking for solutions here. And in this next question, I'm wondering, what do you feel are the next steps to rectify the harm towards Black people? It's a very big question.
Okay, so I won't wait. Because the first steps when you want to talk about what's next is acknowledgement of current and past.
Okay.
If you don't have knowledge of the past, then you're doomed to repeat yourself, right? On accident. Now, if you intentionally repeat your past, that's a whole nother thing, but at least you knew. I don't know if you guys know about Montgomery bus boycotts and Rosa Parks. We all see this picture of this small, beautiful, frail or fragile, light-skinned, attractive, symmetrical face, glasses wearing, harmless looking old Black lady and say, damn, if they're beating her up for where she's sitting on the bus, it must be bad. But you don't realize that had been going on for years.
Right.
And that they had to pick her and say, if they whoop you, this will wake America up.
Right.
And then tell her the seat to sit in. Rosa Parks was a plant. The same way nobody was involved in the sit-ins or cared about what was happening in the civil rights movement until 4 white kids got hurt. Allies that got killed.
Sorry.
Even your phone is sorry for what happened. So sometimes it takes that example that's that extreme to wake up people from other discourses. Now, not just in response to George Floyd, but in response to the fact that for 400 years, America's knee was on our neck.
Right.
And other cultures, I don't want to get into tick for tat of who saw or went through more, but there's other people who've been paid reparations,
right,
whose cultures have been given financial benefit that they were previously denied based on a hardship that they experienced.
Right.
Whether that was intern camps, shout out to the Puyallup Fair.
Right.
Whether that is the Jewish community, whether that is, I mean, even recently, I believe there was some reparations given out to Chinese Americans that went through a lot because of how people were treating their culture based on COVID and
right.
its origin.
And Guamanians, Chamorros, there has been recent reparations in regards to Japanese encampment with Japanese infiltration of Guam. So there are groups that are definitely getting
Who gave
reparations.
the Guamanians money?
The Americans.
Okay. I'm not even sure what it was.
Right. It was during World War II. The Japanese had infiltrated, and the America is now giving them reparations in response to the Japanese coming into Guam, which is interesting.
So the Japanese moved into Guam for positioning, and then the Americans beat the Japanese off the island. And then because of what they went through, we said, we apologize for fighting on your land and what it did. Here's some money.
Correct.
That's righteous, right? But why do we ignore 400 years of slavery and disenfranchisement of an entire
Right.
And here's the thing. We don't talk about race, but you can see me from 4 football fields away. You don't have to talk to me to know I'm black. And you don't have to ask me how my people got here you don't have to do 23andMe.
Gotcha.
If I'm not African and we came here on our own, then I was brought here.
Gotcha. I'm sure at some point we're going to revisit this topic. We gotta keep moving for the sake of the show. The COVID-19 pandemic undoubtedly was the biggest world event in the last 2 years. It was first reported in the city of Wuhan, China, and consequently it led to the perceived increase in racism towards Asians and Asian Americans. On March 13th, 2021, the Stop Asian Hate campaign was launched. The movement consisted of a series of demonstrations, protests, and rallies against the violence being made towards Asians and Asian Americans. Guests, in your opinion, how do we address racism towards Asian Americans specifically? Yeah, it's big. It's big. Yeah.
I think one of the big things that can be done, just one, is like education of our history. Like just recently, I learned more details about even the history that was done here in Tacoma, driving families out of our city completely, and the celebrations that these people had because they forced these families out. It's like, why aren't we learning this?
Right.
You know, and I think that goes for the history of all the different races who are experiencing racism. Like, we have to talk about it. We have to know that also, like, our kids are resilient. Like, they need to hear about these things. And you know what they're going to do? Like, people are afraid they're going to, like, get traumatized or whatever, but they're going to, like, hear it. They're going to grab it. They're going to have compassion, and they're going to fight for change.
Thank you for that. What do you think about the essence of critical race theory? I know that this has sort of been a controversial topic of teaching about race in schools. Do you think that this is something that should be taught within our educational system now?
Critical race theory?
Yes.
Yeah, I do, honestly. I think that people are so scared. I think it's all fear that's keeping this stuff out of our schools. And I think people are so out of touch, and also they're so afraid to lose their position and their place. And they're so scared for their kids to learn the truth.
Right.
Because what are they going to say? Their parents are going to say, like, what are you doing about it?
Right. The interesting thing is, it's the fear behind liberating a people is completely ignorant, because when we liberate African Americans, when we liberate Asian Americans, no matter who you are, it's actually for the betterment of all people. In fact, whoever it is. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I was born in Vietnam. I was adopted to the United States. I have an American family, adoptee. But I've experienced a lot of verbal racism on different bases. I've been told that I'm too pretty to be Asian. I've had people stalk me to my car because of the fetishes. And I've had the ignorance and blindness of, just not knowing themselves and being so poisoned within themselves. They have no idea how to make themselves happy, how to make themselves worth it in their life. And so they go so low to find some type of superiority that they go down to race.
Wow.
To think that that's the only thing in their poisoned mind that would put themselves above another person. So what they're trying to do is bring you down to their level of that hatred, of that poison. And everything I've ever been told about my race is something that I absolutely love. So why I personally am a very understanding, don't really fight back. And it's never helped. It's never helped being yelled at. It's never helped just walking. But for me personally, it's never made anything worse, because especially for myself and my soul, knowing that I didn't go as low as they are projecting onto me.
Right. Thank you so much for that. For the sake of time, we're going to go to the next question. RESPECT, do I know what it means to me? Respect is the cornerstone to establishing healthy relationships between people. Most, if not all, altercations are caused by someone feeling that they've been disrespected by another person. So I'm curious to know, do you guys feel that mutual respect could end racism?
To piggyback off the last question, it just feels like a lot of times when people talk about race in general, it feels like people are just exhausted by the idea of it. So like you'll feel it when it comes up. People will look around each other like, but what are we like? Is this the group that's gonna like solve anything? And there's like a lack of like belief and like communal conversation to make any kind of change. You feel me? So I don't know, mutual respect and a lot of work for sure, but I don't know if mutual respect is
right. What I'm getting at. To respect someone, you have to know them, right? If you don't know somebody, you can't respect them. And in my estimation, I feel that, like as Jaci was talking about, the educational piece, right? Learning about who you're with. We're on a big world, and it's more than just us. And if we can take the time to learn about our neighbor, maybe we can learn to respect them. And then once we respect them, then we'll have mutual respect. That's the sort of thing I was getting at. Yeah. What do you think, Nick?
I don't think I need to know someone to respect them. I think I need to know someone to revere them or to admire them with full appreciation. I've seen people stop what they're doing, go out of the way of their day to release an insect from their house because they don't want to kill it, but watch an open modern day lynching and not do anything. My bad.
No. That's what this. No, man. That's what this is about. Speaking truth. I appreciate that tremendously. We're gonna take this time for a sponsor break, and when we get back, we're gonna get some audience feedback and get you guys to talk and hear what you guys have to say about the subject of race. So before we go, I'm gonna tell you about our amazing sponsors. The first sponsor is the Tacoma Education Association, which represents certified staff, professionals, and workers in Tacoma public schools. Their mission is to identify opportunities to address systemic racism and progress towards inclusive practices, support and empower educators, students, and families in building an equitable, just, and safe community. Thank you so much, Tacoma Education Association, for your work, and thank you for sponsoring this program. Number two, you've been there before. If you're from Tacoma, you've been to this establishment. I'm talking about Southern Kitchen. Now, I'm good friends friends with Gloria Martin. She's the owner. She's amazing. She's always been an advocate in the community. Everyone here, I hope that you go to Southern Kitchen this week. They are sponsoring this amazing show. And thank you so much for Southern Kitchen for supporting this work. So we're back again right now with the audience, and we're going to get some audience feedback right now about this amazing conversation. And we have our first audience member that's going to be posing a question or posing a statement. I'm not too sure which one it will be, but here you go. And state your name and yeah.
Hello, my name's Shanice. And so this question really is for anyone on the guest panel that would like to answer it. As we've seen over the past couple of years, but especially 2 years ago with the George Floyd incident, we see that police have such a big issue in just showing the discrimination and the racism. So what do you think needs to be done with our justice system overall in order to make these changes happen, because they play such a prominent role in how the world and society just really views these races who are being targeted the most?
Thank you so much. Does anyone want to address that question on the guests, the panel right now? I'd like to address it if... This is what I propose. In regards to law enforcement, I think it's absolutely crazy that we don't have cultural competency training in every single precinct. How is one supposed to serve the community to the best of their ability when they don't know who they're serving, right? You may have an individual living in one part of town, servicing a community that's very far away, and being so polarized and not knowing the people that they're serving. I think that's one possible solution. I also think that it would make sense that the people, the police officers that are serving the community would live in the community in which they serve. I think that that way would show accountability, and you could actually build community through that bond. I'm open to any questions as far as, okay, yeah, there we go.
So to caveat, I guess, on what you were saying, I think we should take into consideration what other countries do. They don't have weapons. They go to college for 4 years plus. They get a crazy good amount of money, and they get equipped with a baton, you know? So, and they have to explain anytime they use that baton, versus like guys get sent home with paid leave after shooting their gun. Right. So there's definitely levels that need to be addressed in the aspect of like who's getting these badges, and you know, a background test isn't enough.
What's your name?
Jordan.
Rodriguez. Appreciate that. What you're talking about, Jordan, is accountability, right?
Yes, sir.
How do we hold not only the police officers, but our society, individuals accountable? Oh.
Get rid of qualified immunity.
Say that one more time for the people in the back.
Get rid of qualified immunity.
And explain where.
So, I'm an engineer. If I go and I cause harm to somebody because I'm either negligent or I intend to do that, right? So I'm held responsible for that. If somebody gets hurt or worse, somebody gets killed because of something that I've done, then I'm held responsible for that. The only people in this country that are not held responsible for their actions are police officers. Get rid of qualified immunity. If somebody understands that they're going to be responsible if they act out in a way that's not consistent with the role that they're supposed to hold, especially under color of law, if they know that they're going to be responsible, they know they're going to lose their house. They know they're not going to have a job. They know they're going to spend a couple years in prison. Then they're going to think about what they do, right? You can't just go and beat somebody upside the head and say, well, I was doing my job, and so that's okay. Because if I go do that to somebody, I'm going to prison.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.
our governor has issued that all police officers in the state of Washington have to go through de-escalation class. It is 24 hours of training. However, I personally feel like it should be a little bit longer than 24 hours. Also, the police, for their school, I'm currently in criminal justice. I'm trying to go for my law degree. Looking at the police academy, their training is 10 hours a day. They do 10-hour shifts of classroom, and looking at how many hours they have to do based on how many I'm doing in criminal justice, they're about equal. However, the police officers are not reading out of a book. You go to criminal justice school, I am literally reading books and doing it online. I have no interaction with any public. So if I was to go strictly from criminal justice to be a police officer with no training, I don't know what I'm doing out there. Not even gonna lie, but their training is literally hands-on. And then my question for up top, with you guys seeing Black Lives Matter, how do you guys personally feel knowing that it's more of a political thing and the two individuals use the money that were not African American?
I will rephrase the question and suggest, do you believe that the Black Lives Matter movement is the next step that we can take as far as addressing racism? Is Black Lives Matter it?
Black Lives Matter would have been much more easier to accept and understand by the general public here in this country if they added the word "to," and it was Black Lives Matter too, because that's what it means. The best way to move forward is actually very simple. It's two things. And the first thing is a prerequisite to what the real golden rule is, but the prerequisite is I can love me without hating you. Does that make sense? I can say Black power, and that doesn't mean other nationalities are weak. I can say I love being Black, and it doesn't mean I hate that someone isn't. But if people can understand that, then the real golden rule is to treat others how you want to be treated.
Right. But also in the same sense, it's interesting in our society that you can say Black power, but you can't say white power. Why is that?
Because it was weaponized. Does that make sense?
100%.
The origins of Black power came from the Black Panther Party that was founded in Oakland, California, and they were just trying to feed, educate, and stand on their own feet. But through FBI, COINTELPRO, and misinformation, they were demonized, villainized, and then literally murdered by the government in an attempt to keep from having an uprising against systemic racism and what we would call the machine.
Right. So Black power is survival, white power is oppression.
Well, people say white power in front of burning crosses.
Right.
If the term Black power is received as agitation to you, then you ask yourself why you're more comfortable with Black people being powerless than you are with them having an equal amount of power as you.
Someone had their hand raised over here.
Hi, my name's Barney, and I think a lot of this has to do with basically how we're educated about America. You know, white people, we were educated that America is just about perfect. And so if you hear someone talking about imperfections, you get very, very defensive about it. I think a lot of people are just defensive because they don't want to admit maybe, like it's almost a personal flaw, that there could be some things wrong with America that need to be addressed. It's a very threatening concept to some people, I think.
Thank you for that, Barney.
I'm Cynthia. I just want to give you an example of white power in a 4-year-old little girl. She was raised in a household that never spoke color. We just lived life and we accepted people for who they were when we met them and were kind to everybody. It didn't matter. We didn't talk about in the sense where, well, they were this and they were that. And so when she was 4 years old, blonde, blue-eyed, little pasty girl, her best friend was a little girl from India and her brother. They were both adopted. And the brother was lighter brown and the daughter was very dark. They were her first best friends. And one day in the car, my daughter, Lauren, she said, Mommy, when am I going to be dark like Aaliyah? She saw that as something good. It wasn't anything bad. It was something she wanted to attain because she loved the girl and was admiring her. So if we could all teach our children that, we weren't taught how to speak to our daughter in the home, but it was just, we just loved people. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for that. It's interesting because with race, kids at a certain age, they don't understand it, right? And at some point in their lives, there's an age where they're faced with race and racism. But at the initial stage, you literally don't think about it. I mean, I remember when I was like 5, a little bit, and I don't remember thinking that I was a black person. I was just a person. And then sooner or later, real and truth started springing out. I started to realize that people were treating me differently. And that's when I really learned about there being a difference. Someone had their hand raised over here? Oh, awesome hat, by the way.
I just wanted to speak to the little girl. I was that girl. I was born in '68. I am from the loving generation. My best friend was white. We lived in a rural white neighborhood. We were the only black kids, me and my brother, and we were half black. My best friend was white, and it never got brought up a whole lot. But when it did get brought up, I remember my friend's mother, and I love her to pieces to this day. But she said, "It's okay, Debbie. We don't consider you black." And when I was that little, I didn't understand what a foul that was. And then later on in life, still in school, still best friends with my friend, she started dating black men. And all of a sudden, it was my fault. It's my fault. And I said, I lived in a predominantly white area. And I said, oh, how could it be my fault? I only like white boys. But so at the same time, that little brown child, those kids can be a blessing. Those kids can be weaponized later too. And I'm 54, and about 10 years ago, I started looking into these topics. I still have a handful of friends from back then who still say the racist tropes, the stereotypes, and it's like, even when I say something, they push back. Like, my lived experience doesn't matter, or you took it wrong. You're probably just, I've called myself the great white apologist my whole life, being surrounded by white people, white schools, white teachers. My mother was white, my dad was black, but it seemed like he hated white people. What a crazy way to live. So coming to this talk tonight, I wasn't prepared for this. This has been a huge, swelling part of me for years now. I've been crying the whole time. And because I don't know how to make a change. We talked about superpowers. I know for a fact that I have been the only positive black role model for many white people in my lifetime. And if that's my superpower, then I'll take it, because I don't have any other solutions. So I hope I shattered stereotypes in my lifetime.
Wow. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. All right. That was unbelievable. We're gonna switch gears. The number of indigenous people in the United States is estimated at 2.6 million. That's 2% of the US population. As of 2022, there are 574 recognized tribal entities. These federal recognized native nations are inherently sovereign, yet The U.S. government has ultimate authority over all indigenous nations. The federal government has assumed responsibility for Native tribes through guardianship, although these responsibilities are often underfunded. Impoverishment, unemployment, violence against women and children, as well as a lack of educational opportunities continue to be ongoing issues within the Native community. These forms of injustices have stemmed from a long history of violence perpetrated by the United States government. Guests, what would you say is our role as people living in the United States of America in helping to reduce the racism affecting Native peoples?
I grew up basically like right next to a reservation and had many people in my class growing up who were Native. We even had like Native classes growing up. And I feel like that sort of thing is huge. And I know that I keep talking about education. That's just where my mind is because of my stage of life. But I think that that's part of it. I think representation is a huge part of it. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay. Amy?
I grew up in Oregon, and from my experience growing up, we always, we had parks that had teepees and Native American artifacts, and it was so celebrated growing up to where I had no idea of the trauma and the injustice until I got a lot older and was so confused that we talked about wars and the Holocaust and everything, and we just acted like the racism towards Native Americans was non-existent.
Right. What do you think, Travis?
Well, one, we're all on stolen land, and two, the betterment for indigenous peoples, like you said, the betterment for African American, it betters everybody. It betters the earth. You know what I'm saying? It betters literally the world around us. And I don't know. And when I think of racism against Native people or oppression against Native people, the first thing that comes to my mind is just like erasure. You know what I'm saying? Like everywhere you look, Native erasure is just swept under the rug like it's nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like you can go to a party city right now and be a Native princess anytime you want. Like that wasn't a 12-year-old girl. Like Pocahontas wasn't a 12-year-old girl, you feel me, who was stolen. So like, I don't know. And there's just so many things that happen daily to Native people that just no one talks about, and no one gets anywhere having the oppression Olympics at all. You feel me? Like, but there's just so much Native erasure that isn't talked about day by day. You know what I'm saying? Like just with the Indian Child Welfare Act, like a woman showed up in regalia to speak, and they're weaponizing her regalia. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, the moment we can have the conversation of like what's really happening around us, like we'll get somewhere. You feel me? But
yeah, thank you.
Well, to piggyback off of what Travis just said, things get swept under the rug.
Right.
I think it's our responsibility as Americans to lift up and look up under that rug and see everything that's up under there.
Right.
And then do our due diligence to make right what was done wrong in the past.
Obviously, we're still suffering from the sins of the past. How are you all committed to creating unity and justice between all people within either your field, your life?
I mean, first of all, I love what Nate talked about when he talked about like the golden rule. And I think for a lot of these things, we can feel powerless. Like, what do I do? Like, how can I do something? I'm just one person, but I think when we think about all of the people in our sphere of influence, it's like, I can love this person who needs to hear that racism is real. And so I think for me, a lot of it is loving the person in front of me for who they are, but also as an artist, like uplifting people of color, booking them on my shows, making sure that they have equal opportunity in our communities.
And I think in you being a mom, you have an amazing opportunity to tell your kids about racism and to make sure that they know about what's going on and raising awareness and education that way. So I think that it's a blessing to have, for your kids to have you. So
thank you.
Yeah.
That's so kind.
Yeah. Amy, what would you say?
Well, I know in my purpose, I am not the leader that I am so inspired by everyone else who is. I very much take the role on making sure that that person who will lead will have the mental and mindset and emotional and spiritual
ability to do what they are meant to do and make this change. But it's hard. And I think just in general, I practice compassion and empathy and kindness. And in my personal opinion, I try to just do compassion, which is a mix of kindness and understanding.
And Amy, we all felt it tonight. So we appreciate you exuding those traits tonight. We really do.
Thank you so much.
Travis.
It's staying tapped into the world around you and genuinely reacting and standing up for things that viscerally make you react. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know, people talk about performative activism all the time, but it's just super real in the sense that like people are a lot of like wasting their own space and energy on things that they themselves don't even know what they're trying to achieve. You feel me? I don't know, using, like you said, the superpower, like the voice you have to create any type of change.
Gotcha. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Thank you. And Nate?
I'm of the oppressed, so I don't have the power to provide the benefits to actually create an equal playing field. So it's not the responsibility that I think I need to bear. I think somebody who has benefited from, being the oppressor is the one that's supposed to say, all right, let's make the change for equality. That's why people feel like they're spinning their tires, because we sit in a room of people going, there's a problem, but the people who can move the pieces and fix and change a thing, there really is people that can. They're not here, nor care to be.
Do you think through economic empowerment that we can be that change through reparations, as you've said, and economic development, as I've been saying?
I think it's a combination. I think reparations would be, is long overdue. If anyone can't understand it, it's imagine somebody taking 95% of everything you made for 70 generations or whatever, and then being like, and then just one day being like, it's fair. Oh, is it? So, but at the same time, African Americans buy the most stuff. So there has to be some financial literacy and uplift in that regard. You can't just go give Black people a shitload of money and expect us not to blow it. It's not realistic.
Right. And that's why, I'm honing on the aspect of economic empowerment through capital investments, market incentives, this sort of thing to create intrinsic wealth. Education, most importantly.
Education. Now, I'll say this. In my field of comedy and entrepreneurship, I do have some opportunities I can honor. And the way my hiring practices and booking practices is funny first. My club is called the Super Funny Comedy Club. It's not called the Super Black Ass Comedy Club.
Could you say the title for us one more time for the people?
Jackson Super Funny Comedy Club, located on 84th and Hosmer. Honestly, I book like, are they funny? That could be a single mom or a married woman or a recovering drug addict or an Uber driver or...
Inclusivity is the game.
It's just not being exclusive for no reason.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? I can't say that the other businesses that are like mine in the area operate the same way.
Right.
Whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, they're just doing what looks like them more often than not.
Right.
Even though it's not lucrative to do so.
With that, I would love it if you guys could give me a round of applause for our amazing guests. As Travis was saying, and I wholeheartedly agree, this is progress. This is what it looks like as far as us working together to diminish racism, having these hard, tough conversations that, it's not easy. It's not easy. But we created an atmosphere here where we were able to speak our minds and get one step closer to defeating this major issue of racism. I want to talk to you guys who are watching this at home. Just as space is the last endeavor for exploration, peace is the final frontier for society. That is to say, there's no other endeavor on earth more important. Thank you so much.